Once you understand the final destination, it becomes much easier to look back and identify the psychological conditioning, the biological tampering, the cultural grooming, and the educational prepping that we have been subjected to for decades in preparation to making us accept a post-human future.
History is truly at a turning point.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Riots erupted on the streets of Southport last night following a knife attack on Monday which left 3 girls dead and other young children in a critical condition.
Surely Keir Starmer has to take responsibility for the death of a grandfather who seemingly took his own life in prison after being sentenced to 32 months behind bars for his involvement in the disorder over the summer. Peter Lynch, 61, allegedly took his own life in HMP Moorland in Doncaster.
It doesn't matter what apparent motivation there is. This is violence, it is not protest. It doesn't matter what the motivation is.
Most, if not all, that has transcended in the last 60 years was designed to get us closer to accepting such a dystopian reality.
In times of crisis, the role of governments is more important and more relevant than ever.
The details that you're going to see in this next story are rather disturbing, pretty intense reaction.
We've got children and women using those trains destroying the summer relatives. They are disgusting, nasty factors, and we need to hold their throats and get rid of them all.
But through this technique of problem, reaction, solution, you can actually manipulate people to demand you do what you want to do anyway. So it works like this. First of all, you create the problem, but you get someone else to be blamed for it. You then report that problem through the media in the way you want it reported, because the media is owned by the same people that own the banks and etc. You get the public to react to your problem by saying something must be done, this can't go on, what are they going to do about it? And at that point, they, who have covertly created the problem and blame someone else, who've gleaned that reaction of do something, then offer the solution to the problems they have created.
The coronavirus is the biggest threat this country has faced for decades. There will come a moment when no health service in the world could possibly cope, because there won't be enough ventilators, enough intensive care beds, enough doctors and nurses. All over the world, we're seeing the devastating impact of this invisible killer. We will immediately close all shops selling non-essential goods, including clothing and electronic stores, and other premises, including libraries, playgrounds and outdoor gyms and places of worship. We'll stop all gatherings of more than 2 people in public, and we'll stop all social events, including weddings, baptisms and other ceremonies.
It started at the greeting door, an employee urging a customer to wear a mask, a request that ended in violence.
A violent confrontation over mask wearing going viral on social media. This video already viewed hundreds of thousands of times and now the subject of a police investigation.
The rollout of the COVID vaccine was a globally coordinated effort that saved millions of lives, but it also generated so much misinformation that the World Health Organization coined the phrase infodemic to describe it.
You should not be meeting friends. If your friends ask you to meet, you should say no.
This is my service! Yes. Why don't you say we refuse your service? No. I choose to you, and you cannot stop me!
Jamie Scott's perfectly constructed world collapsed, but now he struggles with everyday life, brain damaged as a result, he believes, of blood clotting caused by the vaccine, a rare side effect he was unaware of.
AstraZeneca COVID vaccine is being withdrawn worldwide after the pharmaceutical giant admitted it causes a rare and dangerous side effect.
It's recorded. This fictional party was a business meeting. and it was not socially distanced. One more, and then one more.
It takes a lot of physical and psychological abuse to get an intelligent species like ours to agree to its own extinction.
We do not yet know the full extent and the systemic and structural changes which will happen.
Sectarian violence on the streets of Leicester.
I know you got a weapon in his hand and you're allowing it. Man's got a weapon and you're allowing it.
Much of the footage has gone viral, used in propaganda videos.
Whether you care to accept it or not, we live in a hyper-controlled matrix where our perception of reality is meticulously planned, managed, and executed in order to control and steer us in whichever direction they wish.
That's not okay. It's terrible to be white. Too much to be white. That's awful.
Why is it not okay to be white?
Y'all have done too much. I would rather, as a whole.
Too much good or too much bad?
Too much bad.
What should white people do about that?
Try not to be white.
Every Muslim is a terrorist. Period.
Right now.
Shut your mouth. I don't want to hear your mouth.
Oh, please.
I'm done with you.
The worst part was not necessarily that the gentlemen that were expressing their opinion in such a way, was the people started clapping and cheering, and that's what I was kind of like more taken by.
But I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
I don't know why you hate us. Why do you hate us? Because we're Mexicans? We're honest people right here.
You cannot go to a 7-Eleven or a Dunkin' Donuts unless you have a slight Indian accent. I'm not joking.
If you're black from any other country, you're doing way better. If you're an American black person, then you're a lazy piece of.
The 7 investigators have obtained the recordings that county officials say prompted Judge Ryan's removal.
Oh, he's just I have no
too many white people in here, and this is a space for people of color.
Women. If progress is the goal, then we must acknowledge inconsistencies and call out the double standards.
No. Yeah, I am racist.
Are you serious? Or are you?
100%.
Moral relativism is the new religion, and I could go on and on about how humanity has been influenced and forced to move away from all the things that give us strength, security, purpose, and meaning.
This concerns me. Do you believe I should be put to death? Do you believe I should be killed today?
And I answered you, sir.
No?
We did answer.
Yes, we did answer. Yeah, so I should be killed.
We did answer.
I deserve to be killed because I left Islam and became a Christian.
According to Islamic law, an apostate like you would be killed, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Get back on your highway to hell and get out of a godly man's face!
We do know that global energy systems, food systems, and supply chains will be deeply affected.
All over the world, experts are sounding the alarm about an impending global food crisis.
Food prices are at near record highs. Fertilizer prices have more than doubled, sounding an alarm everywhere.
I think all of us right now are experiencing some kind of inflation and like weird supply chain issues, but this is different. The world is facing a food catastrophe at a scale we haven't seen since World War II.
Millions in the UK are struggling as the cost of living crisis deepens.
811 million people go to bed hungry every night, and 276 million people are facing severe food insecurity.
1 in 5 households is in fuel poverty, defined as living in hard-to-heat homes and finding yourself below the poverty line once you've paid for energy and housing.
For this, they first needed to destabilize, dehumanize, and demoralize humanity through every means possible. The destruction of the nuclear family, children being indoctrinated by the state, abortion, the eradication of God and spirituality from education, life in megacities and away from nature, toxic food, air and water, social media, replacing real human connection and interaction, engineered financial crisis and taxation, Endless wars and massive migration, stress, anxiety, depression, drugs and alcohol, constant fear-mongering.
Now, we may not realize it, but fear plays a huge role in the world of politics.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts.
Our greatest responsibility.
The news site Deadspin recently produced a mashup video that went viral and unsettled many Americans.
Plaguing our country.
It exposed how America's largest broadcaster forced its local anchors to read an Orwellian script. The Sinclair Broadcasting Group demanded its local anchors recite the same lines, demonizing media and sowing distrust, with warnings like this.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
What's worse, if you actually watch Sinclair's programming, you'll see they violate almost everything they warn against.
Yeah, I didn't realise that the United Kingdom and the United States were actually the same country. The United Kingdom's Labour Party is sending nearly 100 current and former staff to the US to campaign for Kamala Harris.
We got so tired up and I figured you wouldn't mind too much because we're trying to win.
And then you actually started winning in the polls.
I will answer your question, okay? I've studied Nazism for a very long time. It's been 4 decades, and I understand it very well. And I can tell you that there's some awful people lurking in the corners, and they're ready to come out.
A weak, immoral, disconnected, ignorant, and unhealthy population is an easy target for the next stage.
What is also needed is a summit like this one to go beyond crisis management and to look into constructive ways we can build our common future.
You know, one of the things I observed at the University of Toronto when I worked there is I could see this woke nonsense emerging over decades. I really started to see it when I was at McGill University in the 90s.
This is about keeping Canadians safe, protecting people's jobs, and restoring confidence in our institutions.
There has been an unbelievable assault on your financial privacy. Justin Trudeau's government is trying to get access to your personal financial information. Things like your credit card payments, bank account balances, and even how much cash you withdraw from an ATM. This is your private financial information. It belongs to you, not the government, and they should not be going to your bank and your credit card company to try to take it. This is wrong. The government has a responsibility to protect your personal information, not to take it without your consent.
I also think that people shouldn't be afraid to express their opinions. And I don't think anyone wants an America where people are worried about retribution or what people will do if you make your opinion known.
Hold on. What's the answer?
And it works like this. If you want to introduce something, say centralization of power through the United Nations, centralization of power militarily with NATO, if you want to centralize power into fewer and fewer hands, if you did that openly and said this is what we want to do, there'd be a reaction against that. People would say, hey, this is a fascist state you want to create. We're not having this.
Government officials funneled $400 million of your tax money into their own pockets. You would have heard about it by now, right?
He has $1 billion fund whose own bureaucrats say reminds them of the sponsorship scandal, whose executives give money to their own companies.
Because when liberals are in power, the parliamentary press gallery doesn't like to highlight liberal corruption.
An explosive testimony by a whistleblower on this Prime Minister's $1 billion green slush fund that's seen $150 million misappropriated and gone to liberal insiders.
People voted for change. They need to see change.
That is quite a big ask. You're asking him to say, I made a mistake. Party leaders don't do that.
I really want to follow that guy? I don't think so.
And the direction is a post-human world.
Stand with your brothers and sisters. Stand for freedom. Stand for truth.
Masculinity is under attack psychologically, culturally, and biologically. Women are being replaced in sports, entertainment, and politics by men pretending to be women. Children are being indoctrinated at school to think that gender is a choice. The transgender movement is not a grassroots movement. It comes from the top. It has nothing to do with people's freedom of expression, sexuality, or civil rights. It's an evil psyop with a clear agenda to get us closer to transhumanism by making us question the most fundamental notion of human identity, our gender. Gender ideology is the 2 + 2 = 5 from George Orwell's 1984 dystopian novel. It's the final test.
Well, America has experienced a rapid, in fact, a massive inflation in genders. At one point, biologists were allowed to determine what biology was, and there were two, male and female. Now there's agender, bigender, two-spirit, hydra. We could go on forever, literally forever, because the core orthodoxy is that there are infinite genders. But
anyways, we hear from her that there are no studies that have been done on this whatsoever. We've never had a generation of kids that has had this done to them. Like, they're lab rats. So we're just kind of trying this out on a whole generation of kids. But based on what we do know, we know that these are serious drugs. A little bit later in that same interaction, we talk about what the actual drug is. The actual puberty blocking drug is Lupron. That's what it's called. And it is used off-label to, quote, block puberty. It is actually a cancer drug for prostate cancer that you give to adult men. And at a certain point, they realized it had chemical castration properties, so they started giving it to sex offenders to chemically castrate pedophiles, and now we give it to 12-year-old boys.
So that could be a kiddo who is just starting puberty and panicking because they're getting breast buds or their penis is getting bigger and busier, and they're worried about all kinds of masculine changes. And that way, puberty blockers, which are completely reversible and don't have permanent effects, are wonderful because we can put that pause on puberty. Just like if you were listening to music, you put the pause on and we stop the blockers and puberty would go right back to where it was. The next note in the song just delayed that period of time.
Not everyone agrees. Some people believe in science at their peril, it turns out. Lake Ingle is one of them. He's a student at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. In a religion class, a class about Christianity, he stated his belief that there are two genders because, again, that's biology. And for that, he was told he had to apologize in front of the class, stand silently while they critiqued him re-education camp stuff.
It's a genuine question. Look, I think that's what's happening is that we're pushing over a line we shouldn't cross.
The whole thing is bollock. It's a shit show country that we're living in, and it's a shit show government that nobody wants.
I think the social media reinforces that despair, but I don't think it's the cause of it. So for the cause of it, and again, we have to throw out these genetic explanations of mental illness, because if it's genetic, why are they rising? Genes don't change in 10 years. What's going on? If more kids are, and there's this big mystery, both the New York Times and the New Yorker had articles in the last year about the mysterious rise in childhood suicides. There's nothing mysterious about it. It's about despair.
She didn't like the fact that I disagreed with the subject being pushed in class being more than one gender, male privilege, systemic sexism, and mansplaining.
Make no mistake, the final goal is to eradicate humanity as we know it.
If you don't follow the rules, the police will have the powers to enforce them.
If you don't know who you are, if you already identify as a hybrid between a man and a woman, you will be easily convinced to become a hybrid between human and machine.
And then I would observe my faculty colleagues retreating. It's the administration, which has ballooned out of control over the last 30 years in universities, just incrementally move forward with increasingly intrusive demands.
I want to enjoy life. I'm not the final form of myself. I don't know what that's going to be. I had no idea who I was. There was this character that had been created named Charlemagne. I'm like, I don't know who this person is. At some point I remember saying to myself, well, what's wrong with me that I thought it was okay?